Shalom, everybody. This is Dave from Universal Truth of Mankind. I am your host, and this is Meditation 201, where we discuss about self, not the me, myself, and I egotistical self, but rather self, which is an inclusion of your upper soul, your mind, and your body. Now, before we get rolling, as I always talk about, please like and share these videos. They're all free. I'm not asking anything from anybody. And we're in a new age, and it's important that people start understanding this. The spiritual realm, we're becoming more and more aware of, and we're learning that we are people, or complex people, that are not just five senses, not just a physical being, but rather we are energetic beings, we are physical beings, we are spiritual beings, we are metaphysical beings, we have an upper soul. We have a lot that we're becoming more and more aware of, and that have to be assembled and understood so that we can work on improving the world, improving ourselves, which is really the key, and coping with these changes. The age of Aquarius type of a thing. So you see in front of us what we talked about last time about what is light. But before we roll into that, there's a couple loose ends I want to take care of. I last time mentioned that about energy. Sneerson is a good example of energy being transferred. We talked about Reiki. Now, I'm not saying go out and take a course in Reiki. I'm not saying that Reiki should be even part of your efforts or searches or studies or whatever. That's entirely up to you. I'm simply saying that we have the ability to share our energy with others. And I will be showing examples of that. But a first example I want to share with you is Schneerson, Rabbi Schneerson. If you notice a lot of the videos of him where he is talking to people, you'll notice people give him $1 and he'll give them an apple or a bottle of water or something like that. That bottle of water, that apple is imbued with his energy. In other words, he focused on sharing his energy with people. And he would do that and transfer that through an object. This is something that he did a lot. And if you watch videos, you will see that. So even he believes in the idea of sharing energy. After all, we receive from the Creator. If we receive from the Creator, then we need to also share it. How do we share it? We're like the moon. The moon is something that has no light source of its own, so it can only reflect. That's why in Judaism, that's why in the Torah, it talks a lot about the concept of light. You'll see that Israel is equated to the moon in the Song of Songs as a bride, as a wife to be. We also have to share. So, what are we sharing? Well, all these things we come and we're sharing the light we receive. We're sharing our intelligent energies. How do I know we're supposed to do that? Why did Abraham ask about the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, saying, if there are 10 people, will you spare it? And he says, I will. But he goes no further. Did you notice that? Abraham goes no further on that subject matter. He stops at 10. The reason he stops at 10 is because when 10 people get together, they create a minion. They create a person at a higher level. That 10 becomes a collective being. In other words, each person is one of those sephirots. And by coming together, they all become greater than sum of the parts. So we are to share our intelligent energies. from above. We also are to share our metaphysical, our minds. That's why we teach. That's why we share our thoughts. We are to share our energies. We talked about that like Reiki does, and Schneerson did. And we are also to share our physical. What's our physical? Well, someone needs food, someone needs money, someone needs an ear to bend. Remember, when we're talking about the lowest level, we're talking about the five senses. Someone may come to you and say, "Hey, can you taste this for a moment and see if it tastes good?" You say, "Sure," you taste it. So good job, it's really good. Or, "Oh, it needs a little more of this seasoning," or something like that. And a friend goes, "Great, it's great. Thank you so much. I knew something was missing. I couldn't figure it out." And then you help them. So we are to help each other at all levels. That's utopia. That's the that's why we have to get out of our own matrix, as I mentioned in previous videos. We need to get out of our own perspective and realize there's other perspectives. But it's not that it's something wrong that we have our own perspective. It's that we're supposed to share that perspective with others, and that helps them orient and change and gives them ideas. And which I like Tom and in Kabbalah 301, when Tom and Ross and myself get together, we synergize. We create a perspective that's greater than our individual perspectives. Take a watch sometime. I know I'm a little bit behind in that. I had to cut back due to work. However, I'm hoping to get more Kabbalah 301s out shortly. So just stick with us. We'll get there. All right. Thank you for paying attention and letting me get these little things taken care of. But there's one more item I want to take care of, and that's this. I mentioned a book, Torah Therapy. Now, this is available on Amazon. This paperback is $25. I have the two hardcovers, like I mentioned. Very good book, heavy read. You may only be able to read through portions of it right now, and then it may take you literally a few years to read this thing, or you may have to read it over and over several times. But it eventually comes together, and it's really, really a wonderful book. Now, the new one that's been released, original was released in 2005. This particular one, I mean, sorry, the paperback that's recently been released, I don't know if it's just a republication of this or if they redacted or added to it. Let me know if you do. Let me know in the notes. Notes. No, I'm at comments. All right. So thank you very much. All right. Now let's get to the actual material I want to cover today. Remember last time I showed you or talked about Daat, D-A-A-T. Now you notice in this particular illustration, that's actually there. Now understand, this is not a real Sephiroth. This is not a Sephiroth from the creator. The top three are the creator, or I should say is the creator, because it's a singularity. Something that's absolute is indivisible. Period. If it's divisible, then it's not an absolute. This is the discussion I have with people when it comes to a Trinity. Where if you could divide it into three, then it's not one. And if it's not one, then it's not an absolute. And if it's not an absolute, then there's something above it. And that's what needs to be understood. It's a simple logic as that. The lower six, as I mentioned, were created on the 6 days. So it's still part of creation. And then the seventh is the Sabbath, or the day of rest. And that is also created. Rest was created. So it is still part of creation. But what about the odd? It's not mentioned anywhere. Well, we do know, for example, that when man and woman got together, it was called knowledge. In other words, the man knew Eve. So this know or knowledge, that's Da'at. Two people getting together is a Da'at. This is a Sephiroth we create. This is like a covenant between us and the Creator. This is where we consciously say to the Creator, you are my authority. Remember the first video? Remember, if you haven't watched my videos, go to my description list. Look under my description below. Look at my playlist for Meditation 201, start from the beginning and take it slowly and listen to everything I say all the way to this video. And a lot more will become clearer. So now the creator becomes the authority. In other words, there's no little g's between us and God. In other words, there is the big G and we're little g's. We should have no little g's between us and the big G. Remember what I said. The creator is an absolute. So between you and the absolute, there should be nothing at all. Because only the absolute can be the big G, nothing else. So what happens is you create a covenant. You say, okay, you are my authority. You are my love. In other words, you give me love. How do I show my love for the creator? You show the love to the creator simply by sharing with the rest of the world what you've been given. And I explained that before. You share the wisdom you're given. Let's just go back for a moment. You share the love that he given you. In other words, he gives to you, you share that love. He gives you wisdom, you share that wisdom. Now, I understand there's sometimes you have to be careful in what you share and how much, because people may not be ready for some of the things you're aware of. You share some of the revelations you receive. I'm using the word some on purpose because sometimes you can't carte blanche this. In other words, you just can't blab it out. You have to prepare people for information. You share your sanity with others. You share your righteousness with others. You share your positive energy with others and your healing with others. And this is how we become sharers, bestowers. This is why it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Now, what's your heart? Your desires. What's your soul? Your very existence. And your strength. What's your strength? Well, that's physical, isn't it? That means with great effort, you do this. Do this with purpose. Do this with, even though you have resistance and you know it has to be done, you do it. So that's the makeup of Daat. Oh, by the way, you can ignore all the colors in this. I tried getting one without the colors, but I don't know. This is pretty nice looking. So let's take a more of an anthropomorphic picture of this. You can picture the Daat as your head, your brain, your thought process, and so on and so forth. The next row, the left and the right, where it says Kesed and Gevarah, you can view as your shoulders. Gevarah is your right shoulder. I'm sorry, the left shoulder, sorry. Kesed is your right shoulder. You can use that for orientation. The fact, that's your heart. The next row, Nitzak and Hood, are your hips. Where it says foundation, that you can view that as your genitalia, your ability to procreate. So let's just stop there for one moment. What do you mean by procreate? And that's a valid question. What are you procreating? What are you bringing down to this world? Love, wisdom, revelation, sanity, righteousness, positive energy, healing. Now, healing can be applied to your physical being, your energetic being, your intelligent being, your physical being. Did I say physical? I think I did. Your metaphysical being and your soul, although there's no real healing in your upper soul. But the lower part of your upper soul, which is your mind, does need healing. So you see how this all comes together? See that image with this Daat should be coming more and clearer to you as time goes on. Remember, I told you that my purpose is to give you different perspectives. If you understand different perspectives of this image, this illustration, the more you understand what it means to be self, a collective self. And then we go to Malkut, the very bottom. Picture that as your feet. where they come together. And so that's a picture of a human being there. That's an image of us. And those locations that I mentioned, the shoulders, the hips, the heart, that's what each one of those sephirotes match to. In other words, in Daat, you make a decision to become or make the creator your authority. You have no little g's between you and you as a little g and a big G. Then your intelligent energies, which are those next six sephirots, will be transformed and balanced out and enhanced. And that will create foundation, a change in what? The world. We change ourselves, we change the world. There's too many people out there trying to say, oh, you have to do this to make the world better. No, you have to improve yourself before the world gets better. And by becoming more spiritual, we create or procreate into our world. Now, it's not necessarily a physical baby, although that is part of it, and I'll get to that in a moment. But we are speaking about through all this sharing of what we receive, the world changes. We've been given a piece of reality to share with the world so it can get out of its simulation, which is a product of its what? And I mentioned this before in a previous video. It's a product of our perspective. So if our perspective is flawed, we have a simulation. And guess what? Everyone's perspective is flawed. So we are absolutely in some kind of a simulation, no matter how you slice this pie. Now, let's take a look at this picture differently. Like I said, the man knew the woman. Well, you got the left and right columns. Now I was talking about the middle column. The middle column is our goal. The middle column is the balance of the left and the right. In other words, you could look at the left as being discipline, or I shouldn't say discipline, but judgment. Judgment in the sense of, oh, I shouldn't do that. I should look at everything I do and analyze it and determine whether it's a good idea or not. That's what I mean by judgment. I don't mean going in front of a court of law. The right side says, pretty much do as you want, which is not good either. But the one is the left Gevurah, for instance, the left pillar is very restrictive, while the right Hesed side, the right side column, is very giving, very forgiving. Well, neither is really ideal, but if you bring them together, you have something called compassion, discipline. In other words, you bring the two together into a balance. Now you bring the best of the two worlds together, best of the two sides together, and you create compassion. You create the ability to change. The left won't let you change. The right won't let you change. Why? Because the one's stringent and the other's too open. But when you bring the two together, now you have a discipline. Now you have the ability to change, to transform. And when you do that, the center column, like I said, previous video, is the source of your light. Keter is the very top, is the source of your light down. And the light, the more focused you get into the center, the more light comes to the world. Now, if you choose not to deal with the art, you cut off the light. I've spoken to a lot of people, whether they're Jew or Gentile, whether they're Christian or not, whether they're Buddhist or not, whether they're Hindu or not, or whatever religion. I found some very bright souls in each one of those religions. Judaism too. Well, I think I mentioned Judaism. And yet, in each one of those religions, I also seen people that have no soul because they never dealt with the art, or they weren't ready to deal with the art. And that's why you see people, sometimes you look in your eyes and you know there's no soul. All right. So I hope that helps. All right. So let's take another look at this. Let's take a look at the left and the right. I'm not going to distinguish between either side. I don't think it's important right now. But let's say one side is male, the other side is female. Now, when a male and a female know each other, Dot, they come together to the center, and what you said, they procreate. What do they procreate? A child, a physical child. So this image is also about coming together, male and female. Now, I understand some people can't have children. That does not mean you're cursed. That does not mean that you are without means of multiplying. Because ultimately speaking, this is multiplication. You can help multiply. A teacher, a grandparent, a friend can help you, or I could help another, I should say, by sharing this. Remember, the source, the thought of creation, the source, thought of creation, design, designer, fabricator of creation come together and they give us delight and they give us love. So, or I should say, it gives us love. Singularity here. It gives us love. It gives us wisdom. It gives us revelation. It gives us sanity. It gives us righteousness. It gives us positive energy. It gives us healing. And as a result, we receive and we are to share like the moon, receive the light and reflect it back. That's what we're supposed to do. Maybe we can't have a child, but we're fully capable of doing all those. Maybe the Creator endowed you with a very, very deep wisdom. Sure, you may not have children, but that wisdom you can share with the world. And by sharing that with the world, goes to the foundation, you multiply in the world at a different level, not necessarily a physical level. So we have a husband and wife come together. I know my wife. I know what she's thinking half the time. She knows what I'm thinking. And we like to humor each other. Like I'll sense what she's thinking and I'll make a comment I know is going to make her laugh. And she starts laughing. I said, I know what you think. She says, I know you know. I said, I knew you were going to do that too. But you know each other. That's at a level that you and your wife are supposed to get to, where you're thinking alike, where your two minds are coming together and creating a balance in the middle. Sometimes your wife is too lenient. Sometimes the husband is too stringent or reversed. Well, the two come together, like opposites attract type concept, come together and they balance in the middle. And by doing that, as you two are selves, or a self and a self come together, you create another level of self. Like a minion, they come together and they create another level of self. That's why we see Jethro telling Moses, when it comes to a court of law, you are to have leaders of 10, of 50, of 100, and 1,000. Just focus on the 10. You can't have 5, you can't have 3, you can't have 9, you have to have 10. You come together and you create a higher level image of. Now, as you do this, you're showing love because love means to give to yourself. You love yourself. You give to your wife, she gives to you. You create love between each other. You have a minion come together and you love each other by giving what you received. Oh, Hashem spoke to me last night. I used to find that in synagogues quite a bit. And it was enlightening. It was very enjoyable. And then, like I say, your 10 minion, you can consider that your neighbor. You come together and you create a higher level self. Now, I'm not saying you can give to somebody who's a tyrant. You can give to somebody who is mean and nasty, but you only give a little bit. Because remember what I said. Sometimes you cannot carte blanche share all this information that you see here, the love, the wisdom, the revelation, sanity, the righteousness, the positive energy, the healing. Sometimes you have to use a dropper and just do a little at a time because you can drive someone insane if you give them too much information. Be careful how much you share. Let the creator encourage you and discourage you to share information. All right? Very important. So that's a good perspective of what we're seeing here and the importance of Daat. Daat is, like I said, not a real Sephiroth, but through creating we can create a relationship between us and the creator. And by doing that, we create that 11. That is not automatic. That's 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 our effort. We want to join the creator just for the asking, that's created. That's all it takes. We don't have to do any certain spells or have certain potions or say certain prayers, believe in certain things. Oh, I believe in, therefore now I'm saved. No, it's not what it is. We're not talking about faith here, the moon. Well, we sort of are, but not the way you think. This is where we make the creator our authority. All right, I'm going to stop there. I hope this gives you great insights to this image, different dimension, different perspectives of this image that will help you to pull self together. Remember, Binah there is Elohim, it's Neshama. There's an upper and a lower. The lower is for us to develop the change. That goes into Daat, and then the rest of us can be transformed all the way down to Malkut. Everything above, we leave alone. We can't comprehend or understand. So even though we have these this little triangle or triad, triunity there, it really isn't more of a singularity. All right. I hope this helps. Have a great day. Shalom, shalom.